I'm Meera Sabaratnam. I'm a tutorial fellow in politics here at New College, and my field is international relations. Now, international relations has been historically founded to think about how states interact with each other. I'm also interested in that, but I'm interested in looking beyond the state at ordinary people. In fact, one of the things I like most about international relations is that we think a lot about how power and wealth are distributed in the international system. But most of the time we think about those problems from the point of view of people who are in charge. My research tries to look at these problems and issues from the point of view of people who are not in charge, who are disempowered by those systems, who are at the margins of them. So my first book, which was about international aid and state building, was about thinking about how Mozambicans understood the aid relationship from the point of view of being the intended targets. This was unusual because most studies look at the problem from the perspective of the donors. Another piece of research I've been doing is about the First World War. Again, I'm looking at it from the point of view of people we don't normally think about. And so this time I was thinking about the impact of the First World War in Southeast Africa. Not many of us know that there was fighting in Southeast Africa and that lots of people were drawn into the conflict, not just in terms of being soldiers or being conscripts, but also in terms of being porters, because people would have to carry the military equipment around, there weren't many roads, and in terms of supplying the armies. And so people were drawn in from all across East Africa and Southern Africa to supply the war effort. And this had a huge impact on their economic situation and on their political situation. So obviously there aren't many written records for that period, but historians have managed to piece together stories. One set of information comes from Portuguese soldiers' biographies in Southeast Africa, and some of these biographies were in fact censored at the time because they put the empire into a bad light. Other sources have been oral histories from African communities that have been passed down through generations. So I think we're all brought up with the idea that we owe debts to, for example, those soldiers who have fought for us and died for us in wars, and that's a kind of a moral debt that we owe. Some of us also think that in terms of citizenship, that what we owe to our country or a society is a kind of a debt, and many countries have national service systems where you discharge that debt to society. But then there are other questions about what kinds of debt we owe. So if we think about the climate crisis, one of the conversations that's going on now internationally is who should pay for either climate mitigation or climate change adaptation or some kind of reparation. And that is a question about who owes what to whom and whose debts are being paid off by whom. Who's the debt owed by to the environment, if we think in such terms? And how does lending work to secure climate finance?